That means I think in rules. Every game is a set of agreements. You sit down, you open a box, and everyone agrees to play by the same rules. Every gamer learns this fast. If someone cheats, you don't argue forever. You don't rewrite the rules mid-game. You just stop playing with them. Cheaters never say they're cheating. They say they interpret the rules differently, or technically it didn't say I couldn't do that. Sure, we can twist the rules around all we want, but that's not intelligence. It's bad faith. Rules only work if they apply to everyone. The moment someone decides they're optional, the game is already over. You can play by any rules you want, as long as everyone agrees before the game starts. You don't change them when you're losing. And normally the consequence is punishment. It's exclusion. Well, I don't want to play with you anymore. Here's the real problem. What if you can't leave the table? What if the game keeps going whether you want it to or not? It stops being a game. At that point, the question isn't are you winning? It's who's breaking the rules and why are we letting them? Let's take some calls and find out.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.
Oh man. Not sure. I feel like that opening was cut off in the middle there a little bit.
I don't know. We didn't have our normal count in, so hopefully it went out okay.
I think we're well on track here. I'm your host tonight, everybody, Justin, and to my side over here immediately we've got Jim Barrows. Jim, it's an honor and a pleasure to meet you. We didn't get a chance to talk much before the show, but I want you to know I've been watching you for years.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for joining me here today.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have hopefully we'll have some fun. So we'll see how it goes.
Sure. Let me just fix my camera a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're talking about playing by the rules, and up until FDR, presidents only did what the Constitution expressly allowed them to do. And FDR, and ever since then, decided they can do anything they want as long as the Constitution doesn't prohibit it, which is a completely different point of view on how that should work. And we're seeing some of the consequences of that now. So,
yeah, if we take my opening a little bit more directly and put it towards the current American government and that cabinet over there, I've been saying it for a little while. It's like a lot of people think that when you break the rules, well, then you get sued or you go to jail or you get arrested. I've been telling people that no, Trump is playing the game like getting sued or going to jail is part of the game, right? Like he's perfectly happy to be sued and to sue people. Like, that's just part of winning or losing that game. And then
he's also got the full. You also have to have a referee, someone who is willing to enforce the rules, right? Whether that's everybody sitting down to the game, if someone's cheating at, say, Monopoly, and they decide, okay, well, if you're going to continue to cheat, we're not going to play with you. We can't really do that in the political sphere, but Congress and the Supreme Court are supposed to be, acting as some sort of referee, and they refuse to do anything about what he's doing. They're allowing all of this, they're encouraging it, and that's never a good thing.
Yeah, and that right there just brings up the final couple moments of my opening there of what do you do when you want the ride to end but you can't get off, right? Because you're buckled in. The roller coaster ends when it comes to its natural conclusion, and stopping it in its tracks can be tough.
Yeah, and I mean we kind of have to wait for the midterms. Last November, there were some shots across the bow telling them to stop and letting the Republicans know they were in trouble. And that did cause some Republicans to change their minds on some stuff. But, we still, now the midterms, we've got some more opportunities. So we have some safety valves, but We don't have a whole lot, and I need to go take care of this dog before she drives me
Yeah.
crazy. I will be right
Yeah,
back.
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Skeptic Haven, myself, and I'm sure everybody watching right now, um, are huge fans of dogs. So Jim, you do what you gotta do, even if it means bringing the puppy over and sharing them with us. Um, but yeah, Jim makes a great point, and hopefully those midterm elections will turn out well for everybody. But assuming Jim can still hear me, um, you know, this, my opening also kind of works in regards to engaging with theists as well, because they claim to have this big, bulky, ancient, divinely inspired book of rules that they claim they follow, and
Mhm.
they believe we should all follow. And it's always interesting when we nail one to the wall and suddenly the rules are interpreted differently or something changes, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much wrong with so much of what they do with that. There's a really, really good set of books by Jim Butcher, the Dresden Files. And in the Dresden Files, the God exists, but all the gods exist in some form. But the Christian God is the most powerful. His rules make sense. It takes place in Chicago, and I don't know if Butcher lives there or not, but he's got a lot of Chicago in it, and a bunch of fiction. So it's historical fiction, just like the Bible, but it's better written. It's far more entertaining. And Harry Dresden dies and comes back, and it's a much more believable story, given the rules that Butcher has set up for how the supernatural works. So, why should I believe the Bible is true? We know it was written by men. We know the Dresden Files are written by a man. The difference is that we have someone who says, yes, I wrote it, and yes, it's fiction. But if we exclude that, what's the difference between the two books? One is a much better written story. One is, I don't know how many books he's up to, 15, something like that. And the other one, 66 books, many of which, have problems because they don't agree with each other. They were written for different theological purposes. There isn't one single through line all the way through. And any argument you make for why I should believe the Bible, I can apply to Harry Dresden, to the Dresden Files. And it just doesn't make any sense. And they keep moving, they keep propping that book up full of rules, but it doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, I think. Well, actually, before I go on to this next point, I'll try not to forget this point. But real quick, I just want to again thanks Jim for joining me here tonight on Skeptic Haven. And again, we haven't been properly introduced. I'm Justin, and everyone who's in the audience tonight already here watching. Thanks for coming. So if you want to call us and engage with us on any of these topics or anything that any other rabbit hole Jim and I might find ourselves going down, this is the first time in all of YouTube history where this guy has been teamed up with this guy. So
Yep.
we're looking for that first caller to engage with this duo. All right. So the number is right there on your screen, 984-400-5656. I believe there's also a call in studio link you can click in the description if you want to as well. And then now I'll try to re-engage on the point I was going to make. Right. One particular rule or point that I find that people make a lot in referencing the Bible is how they'll say the idea that Jesus has already fulfilled the prophecy of the Old Testament, so it's irrelevant. So whenever you try to engage with someone on the Old Testament, they'll be like, "Yeah, but that doesn't matter anymore," right? But then you start asking them, "Well, wait a minute, the Ten Commandments aren't valid anymore," and they'll be like, "Oh no, those still count." And
Yeah, well, there's
it's just like,
a quote from Matthew, not one jot or one tittle of the law will change, right? It's Matthew 5:18, I believe. Yeah, for truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. And it gets worse than that here where when Christians start talking about this kind of thing. Because then, and also we start 17 through 19 is the full quote that talks about the law didn't change, right? So in 17, do not think I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called in the least, be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So you can't get away with changing the law in the Bible. There's just no way to do it. And so some of those laws are the slavery laws, right? Where you can't beat your slave. You can beat your slave as long as they don't die within 3 days. Yeah. You're okay. That's Exodus 21, 20 through 21. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they're not to be punished. The slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. And the interesting part of that is the word in there could also be translated as money, and some translations do say money there. Leviticus 25:44 through 46. As for your male and female slaves, whom you may have, you may acquire male and female slaves from the pagan nations that are around you. Then, too, it is out of the sons of the sojourners who live as aliens among you that you may gain acquisition, and out of their families who are with you, whom they will have produced in your land, they also may become your possession. So there's chattel slavery. So if you're going to believe that the rules are still there, then you still have to go with these rules that are still there. And that doesn't make any sense, because there are so many of them that don't make that we don't consider to be good things anymore, right? Not just slavery, but other ones.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I've heard that argument made many times, and then the answer is always, well, you're just misinterpreting it. But yet you just read these things verbatim to us. And I'm struggling to figure out what other interpretation could there possibly be.
I had this conversation on Facebook today with the guy, and he started going into all the other forms of slavery, the other than chattel slavery, and I kept, requoting and go, no, that doesn't apply to this. This doesn't apply to this. And he finally says, well, it's not the same slavery as we had in the South. And I says, you didn't notice I keep using the word chattel slavery? You didn't notice where the quote said, for they are your possession? And I mentioned that word could also be money, or your property. That could also be your money, and that they are your possession. Didn't notice any of this stuff. They just don't read for themselves anything in there at all, and that's a problem always, because if you're not reading the Bible, the fast way to become an atheist is to read the Bible from cover to cover. Yeah. Word for word, and realize all of the crappy stuff that's in there.
Yeah, and you know what? That's key, what you said there. It's not the fastest way is reading the Bible. It's the cover to cover part, right? Because I find that that's the shroud a lot of preachers or schools put over people is, I used to question this all the time in religion class when we were sitting and reading the Bible, and the teacher would be like, let's go to the middle of the book. It's some random words in the middle of a page. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, who does this? When was the last time you started a movie from the middle?
Right.
Right. Like,
right.
No one does that.
Well, they do that with the so-called prophecies too, right? They will take half of a sentence and go, that's a prophecy about Jesus. And you're like, and you're accusing me of taking the Bible out of context? Do you know what the context of that is? has nothing to do with prophecies. It's not making a statement about the future. And you're trying to say it's a prophecy? Wait a minute. Are we just dumbing down what a prophecy is these days? Makes no sense.
Coleus in the chat also makes a great point of like changing the definition of slavery or different types of slavery. Like, does it really matter? Is there a slavery out there that it's like, oh, that one's cool. We're fine with that. Is there? And that's a great point as well, right? Slavery is just bad, umbrella statement, and it was always bad. Anyone who will come up and argue, well, it was acceptable back then. It was like, that doesn't mean that us today can't look back and say they were bad.
Right. Well, also, if God can ban us from eating pork, why can't he ban slavery? Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
pork is a perfectly valid food source.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if you're gonna make rules about something completely, well, I don't want to say mundane, but like lesser than slavery, for example.
Right.
Why not address the big ones first?
Right. And someone was pointing out that, women had it particularly bad. And it's like, well, why did they have it particularly bad? I mean, why are women second-class citizens in the Bible? Why didn't God do something about that? And make some sort of rules, and he doesn't. Well, he does make, rules about women. If a man sexually assaults a woman, he pays her father 50 shekels of silver and then must marry the young woman, for he has violated her. Now, we know through modern research that a woman who keeps in contact with her abuser over time ends up with, PTSD, depression, anxiety, suicide, chronic fear, hypervigilance, sleep disturbances, and other somatic symptoms. And the longer that goes on, the worse those symptoms get. So the question is if God is omnibenevolent, he's all good, and he's all knowing, so he knows this, why would he have the man marry the woman?
Yeah, it just makes the abuse worse, right? The trauma lasts longer.
Yeah. And that's Deuteronomy 22, 28 through 29. And Exodus 22, 16 through 17. It's almost exactly the same word for word. It's certainly the same in concept. But in Exodus, the father can refuse to give the woman, his daughter, to her assaulter. And then he shall pay money equal to the dowry for virgins. So implicit is that there is a monetary value to a human.
I had a spider on my microphone, sorry.
That's okay. And that a woman who has had sex, whether consensually or not, is worth less than a virgin. How? Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
And these, we were talking about rules. These are rules in the Bible, right? Exodus or Deuteronomy is full of them, and so is other ones.
Yeah, another one I've recently become aware of is the staining of like the marital bed or whatever on the night of their marriage. If she doesn't,
that's Deuteronomy 22, 13 through 30. That whole thing. And it starts off in 13 of, if a man takes a wife and after sleeping with her dislikes her and slanders her and gives her a bad name, saying, I married this woman, but when I approached her, I did not find proof of her virginity, then the parents get to embarrass the crap out of her and show proof that she was a virgin. The problem is that about only a third of all women bleed the first time they have sex. The 2/3 of women, and I may have the ratios backwards, I should double check that, are going to have that be false.
I heard it was less than half. Yeah, less than half actually bleed.
So, that doesn't make any sense.
Meanwhile, the first 10 commandments, the first rules, you would consider to be the most paramount. Rule 1, 2, and 3 are you better love me or else.
Right. Well, yeah. Anytime if you had a human come up to you and go, worship me or else, you'd laugh at them.
Right.
And then if they tried to actually enforce that, you would have them arrested, because that kind of behavior is not good behavior. So that doesn't make any sense either, right? Why all of a sudden do we think it's okay for God to do?
Yeah, or even a parent to their child, where they might even have a little bit of power over them. We would still consider that to be like very abusive behavior. Um, and and if we compared that parent to God when that child decided they did not want to love us, then our solution was to lock them in our basement and burn them for eternity.
Yeah.
That would be just insane.
Yeah, eternity is a forever for a crime that cannot be forever, right?
Right.
But then you can look at the rule that he creates where a uninvolved third party can volunteer to take the punishment in place of somebody else. Something that is not allowed in any justice system I am aware of. But it's okay for God to do it. Now, why?
Yeah.
Why is that okay?
To his own son, no less.
Yeah, and his own son, right. I had somebody, I was doing a TikTok live, and somebody said, well, that's love. And I said, I didn't ask if it was love. I asked if it was justice. And they can't, there's no answer to that, right? That is not an act of justice to do that. Or worse, a uninvolved third party decides to forgive one of two people involved in a dispute, and now the other person has to magically forgive them too? How does that work? Right? If I hit you in the jaw and say, Cullist says, I forgive Jim, therefore you have to forgive him. Does that make any kind of sense at all?
Right. No, it
I
really
hit you in the jaw.
doesn't.
I should be the one paying, I should be the one asking for forgiveness. I did the thing. Just because some random person says that they forgive me doesn't mean anybody else has to.
Yeah, and then the other part, too, Jim, I believe we were both raised Catholic, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Yes, I was.
I mean, I know I was, and only just from being a super fan of yours, I'm pretty sure you were as well.
Yeah.
The thing that always kind of like made me go, this makes no logical sense to me as well, is even after the deed was done, right? So God gives up his only son as a sacrifice for our sins and stuff. Every time I was forced to a confessional, I was like, wait a minute, why am I here? Because I thought all my sins were forgiven. I thought Jesus took care of this for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
all of the sins.
all of
them.
Yeah.
The ones you haven't committed yet, too. No matter what the sin is. Well, as long as you don't blaspheme against the Holy Spirit, that's the only thing that I'm aware of, right? Everything else is forgiven. That doesn't make any sense. And then if we're following God's example, then when one person sins, that we should punish everybody in the group that person belongs to. God does this to David. David commits a sin. God punishes all of Israel for it. Wait a minute. How does that work? Right? Where's the justice in that? David did the thing, not the people, and it, not the Israelites. So, but I think we have a caller. I think we have a caller.
Yep. I was just waiting for confirmation that it was safe to take the call at this point.
Oh, yeah. It's still in the queue. It has not moved to the room. All right. Well, if it makes it safe, we'll take them because he's the one to talk about the definition of slavery.
Yeah, sure. So we got Alfred, him from Texas, wants to discuss the definition of slavery. How's it going, Alfred?
Evening.
How are you? How's the weather in Texas?
How's the weather in Texas? It's cold for Texas. So, where are you guys? curious.
I'm in Alabama. We got snow this morning.
Oh.
I'm in Niagara Falls, Ontario. We got snow in November.
Yeah.
And it's still here.
Is that early or what?
You know, it comes and it goes. I feel like we're on a 3-year rotation. Every 3 years we get it pretty bad. So right now, the current temperature is -10, which in Fahrenheit I'm not really sure what that is, but too cold for someone from Alabama and Texas. But perfect for me. Anyways, Alfred. But Alfred, do you want to talk about the definition of slavery?
Yes. So one thing I know that there's slavery in the Old Testament. It's condoned, and I am a Christian, and that's like, I don't know the most embarrassing thing about our faith, but a real, eyesore, let's say. And one thing I will say that's kind of left out of these discussions, the founding story for the ancient Israelites is an escape from slavery, and that's very often lost. And I think it's wrong to leave that out. Like, these people, their story, their origin story, the one that's really historically verifiable.
Is it?
Are we talking about like Moses?
You're talking about Exodus, right? Yeah.
Because it's more.
Exodus is
God. Sorry.
I say there's no archaeological evidence for 1 million Semitic people living in Egypt at any point in time. The Exodus never happened.
It is really hard to disprove something, but when it comes to like Moses and the story of Exodus, I'm pretty dang close to successfully disproving that any of that ever happened.
Well, no. There's a difference, but as it's told in the book, it's a theological work. I think it's pretty likely that there was some kind of Exodus, not nearly as exaggerated with all that colorful language and stuff, that actually happened, and it like actually goes back to a real event. So I don't know how emotionally intelligent it is to really go on about slavery in the Bible and all that without not even mentioning like this is these people, their founding story. Like, who else has a story like that?
Well, so we're talking about Exodus. And so, right? So chapter 21, verses 20 through 21, anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. That word in Israeli can also be interpreted as money, and some interpretations of the Bible do have that as money. So I don't know what Exodus has to do, the actual Exodus has to do with anything, given that here we are in Exodus in chapter 21 saying that slaves are their money, and saying that not only is it okay to own them by implication, but it's okay to beat them as long as they don't die in 2 or 3 days. 4th day is okay. 5th day is okay.
It's okay to beat them. It doesn't say it's okay to beat them, and I'm not.
But they are let me read this again. Right, listen carefully. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. So yes, if the slave dies on day 4, whoever beat them is not to be punished.
Well, you said something about it being okay, and it doesn't say that. And I don't want to.
Sure it does. I mean, they're not to be punished.
It pretty much does, right?
Yeah, if they're not to be punished, how is that not? It's okay to beat them.
It's basically saying like you can throw all the backhands you want, just don't use a pitchfork. It's basically what it's saying.
Like, let me make an analogy. This will take 10 seconds. It's like if I made a law saying if a person uses a slur against gays, they're not to be punished. Does that mean I'm saying it's okay to call someone the F word? No, it's just like
Yes, you are. You're saying
Yeah.
it's absolutely okay because anything that is not punished is okay to do. Yes.
Oh my God.
Anything that is not punished, it's okay to do.
Well,
Right?
that's a strange way to define okay.
That's how our justice system works. You can do anything as long as it's not against the law. Everything is okay to do as long as it's not against the law.
Well, maybe we should define okay then, because I don't think it's okay to say the N word, but I don't think people should be punished for it, by law.
Who's being punished for saying the N word? It's not against the law to say the N word in either of our countries.
Yeah, does that mean it's okay to say it?
Depends.
Are you
quoting Mark Twain? Are you quoting Mark Twain? Are you a black person who use it quite a bit without any type of? Actually, it is. It's okay if a black person uses it, and they do it all the time. It's perfectly okay. There are contexts where that word is absolutely 100% okay. Some of those contexts are historical. Some of those contexts are the fact that the person is black and it is okay with using it. So yes, it is okay to use the word under certain contexts. But here we're talking about what's okay under the law, not what's okay by social rules. And under the law, because that's what Exodus is laying out here, is the law that it's okay to beat your slave.
In all of this, yes, and in all of this, the fact that these are people, formerly enslaved people, that gets lost in all of this kind of discussion. And I'm not here to defend.
It's not getting lost. It's irrelevant to the discussion.
Well, see, there you go. So,
yeah, it's irrelevant. The fact that these were the Israelites were once, or actually the Semitic people in general, were slaves in Egypt.
Yes,
is completely irrelevant to the thing, right? Because slavery was accepted as a perfectly moral practice throughout Canaan, which the Israelites were Canaanites, right? And throughout most of the human population at the time, especially in the Middle East, it was okay to own slaves. And this just backs that up, that it is perfectly legal, perfectly acceptable to own slaves.
In fact, the rule itself is almost more regulatory than a rule about slavery, frankly. It's very much so encouraging of slavery. It's like, all right, all of you slave owners out there, here is some rules that we expect you guys to follow in regards to owning slaves. Like, that's how okay slavery is, to the point of where they have to have the nuance in there for how to care for them, essentially, which was almost what this was kind of a rule of.
All right. We could go to Leviticus 25:44 through 46 if you want something a little more explicit. Verse 44 says, as for your male and female slaves, whom you may have, you may acquire male and female slaves from the pagan nations that are around you. Then too, it is out of the sons of the sojourners who live as aliens among you that you may gain acquisition, and out of their families who are with you, whom they will have produced in your land, they also may become your possession. You may even bequeath them to your sons after you to receive as a possession. You can use them as permanent slaves. Right? So even more explicit that owning slaves is perfectly fine according to the old biblical rules.
All right. So I just would like to get into definitions. So I define slavery as involuntary servitude. Would you say that's a good definition, or what's your definition?
Oh, I swear to whatever God you believe in, if you start saying that people in jail are comparing them to slaves.
Yeah, no, that's completely stupid. I don't think he's. I don't think he's that stupid.
To be fair, that was I'm interpreting something. Let's see what Alfred was going to say. Ask that question again. Sorry, Alfred. What did you ask us?
What is your definition of slavery?
Person A owns person B.
I like it. I'm with Jim.
I would say for me, it's forced labor, and what's really upsetting to me is there's modern slavery going on, and it's kind of lost. And even some atheist types, they don't condone it. I don't know, but they don't speak about it, and
no, the modern slavery. Yes, it's called human trafficking. There are laws against it.
Yes. Well, I'm just talking about, like, right now, the war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine, they're doing conscription, and it's forced military service, which is
That's
a
not
type of
slavery. That's a whole different topic.
That's
That's
another
not
animal.
slavery. Slavery has to involve ownership of a person as property, especially in regards to their labor. It's an economic phenomenon, and its history resides in economic history. Right out of Wikipedia's entry on slavery. And that's exactly correct. It's ownership. Conscription is something that has been practiced, and whether or not you think it's moral or not is a completely separate issue from slavery.
Well, it is forced labor, so it's slavery by my definition. So, and I'm wondering
Yeah,
what
but your
you think about
definition's not the most commonly used, so
Well,
if you want to try and weaken slavery to make the Bible's position better, you're more than welcome to do that, but I'm not going to let you do it on this phone call.
I'm not trying to defend the Bible. I'm just talking, like, many atheists, like, there's actual legal slavery in Ukraine. They're forcing these
Conscription is not
boys.
slavery. Just because you want to define it that way doesn't make it so.
It's not just me.
We have also done the same thing in this country with the draft.
Right?
Yeah, and that's why it's not slavery.
Right?
No human being is being owned.
I would also argue that that if conscription was actually slavery, the result of refusing would be like being beaten to death. Whereas conscription, if you refuse, you're more likely to be just exiled or imprisoned. Which I've often said to myself, if I ever lived in a country that was going to force me to war, I'll take the prison sentence.
So, you know how gross it kind of sometimes sounds to hear Christians defending slavery? Right now, I'm starting to feel that kind of a little. I mean, it's inhumane what's being done to these people.
We're not saying it's not inhumane. We're not saying it's not moral. We're saying it's not slavery. That's a whole different thing. I agree with you. The conscription is a bad thing. The draft is not a good thing, and that it is happening. That is completely separate from slavery.
Yeah, I'd like to add, Alfred, real quick too, that I'm with both of you, right? We don't want to see anybody forced to go to war. In the case of Ukraine, I mean, they're doing everything they can, and to the best of my knowledge, their government was legally elected, and therefore they gave them the power to be in charge to make these decisions for them, whether they like those decisions or not. And all it's terrible. It's terrible. Under the umbrella of it's all terrible. I think the reason that Jim and I bring up the topic of slavery in the Bible is because we are trying to say, how could you read or follow any of the rules in the Bible when it can't even get simple moral questions like the idea of slavery is wrong, right, in the first place? That's the position we're coming from. In fact, our discussion kind of started out with this idea of like theists trying to defend slavery. And Alfred, I kind of like where you're going, and I want to fan the flames on that. Is how do you believe in a God, love a God, and read a book that is apparently divinely inspired by a God when that same book says slavery's cool?
Yeah, so I don't believe that a perfect God would order stuff like that. So I don't believe that God said any of this stuff in Exodus 21. I think that's the understanding of God at the time.
What do you mean the understanding of God at the time?
I think they put, for the ancient Israelites, they put into the mouth of God things that they understood. They projected themselves onto
Oh,
the
so the
divine.
Bible's not the Word of God.
Well, it depends what you mean by word of God. I don't think God wrote the Bible. If that's what you mean, then probably more than half of Christians don't consider the Bible to be the word of God.
Whoa.
Well, that's a problem, right?
Yeah, sorry, Alfred. You shock us. We're not laughing at you. That's one heck of a thing to say.
Yeah.
That,
I mean, if the Bible is not the complete Word of God, where do you get God from the Bible? How do you know any of the Bible is true if you're going to say that Exodus 21:20 through 21, or all of Exodus 21, really, because the whole thing is kind of horrible. The whole chapter is kind of horrible. How do you know that? How do you determine what anything is from God then?
I don't really have an answer for that right now at this point in my life.
Then why do you believe
Okay.
in God?
I don't know. It's really a choice. Part of when I think a lot of times when we choose to believe in something, it's like we look at the other people who believe in it, and it's like, do I want to be associated with these people? Are these people that have my back? Do I trust them? I think there's a lot of that going on. If I'm being candid.
So,
Go
just out
ahead.
of curiosity, how many things in the Bible that we know are absolutely incorrect or wrong or false or contradict itself? How many things do you need to see in that Bible before you can question the entirety of the book? I gave you a math book and it had one question wrong. Would you disregard the rest of that math book?
I see your point. No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many math questions would have to be wrong before you threw out the whole book?
Probably about 10.
I mean,
So,
it, I love that you
is
tried to give an answer, but the question was so open-ended. That's just interesting.
yeah.
But let's see what Jim's got to say on the end of that.
So, do you think all of Matthew chapter 5 it includes quotes from Jesus himself?
I think I know where this is going. I think
Yeah,
there's some.
17 through 19. I've already read it once, and it kind of shoots you in the shoots you in the
Oh,
tuchus on this one.
not really.
Yeah, it does completely. So let me read it again for you here real quick. Matthew 5, 17 through 19. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall not be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So you are not keeping Exodus or Leviticus. Neither is any Christian in the United States that doesn't own human beings as property. And they're certainly not teaching that anymore. And you just said it's not even the word of, you don't even think it's the word of God. So how do you reconcile this problem you seem to have?
So I'm not entirely sure what's meant there. So in the time of Jesus, those laws in the Torah were not fully in effect, and
Sure
like
they were.
I think what it
He says
what it
that. He
refers
says that.
to is what?
He says it. He says, do not think I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. So guess what? The law applied. Whether the Jewish people, whether the Israelites were keeping the law is a completely separate question. All the laws were in effect. All the laws are in effect.
Yes, and Jesus, when he was asked, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment?" He said to love the Lord your God, the Shema and all that, and he also said to love your neighbor as yourself. That was basically for him the compendium, all of the Torah in a nutshell. So I don't see how that.
But he doesn't let anybody slaves free. He never says free the slaves. He never says love your neighbor.
Something like
right?
it.
Your neighbor is a free person, not a slave, right? And how is loving your neighbor? Let me read to you Leviticus 25 again. Then too it is out of the sons of the sojourners who live as aliens among you. Those would be your neighbors, and out of their families you may, and then you may acquire male and female slaves from the pagan nations that are around you. So your neighboring nations. All of these things include neighbors. So where do you get this from?
So Jesus is actually asked after
Yes.
he recites this. I'm sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, he's asked, and who is my neighbor? And yes, at the time when the Torah was written, that was the understanding of neighbor. And he expands the definition of neighbor to basically include everyone in the parable of the Good Samaritan, as I'm sure you know.
Mm-hmm. But the laws are still in effect. He never abolishes the law. So you can say the neighbor includes your slave. You can say neighbors include slaves, right? I would say that neighbors are free people only and not slaves.
Yeah, I just don't know
because that's how I reconcile what he said with what the law is.
Okay.
Because you can't reconcile it any other way. See, this is the problem that you have if you're going to follow the Bible.
Yeah, and then there's another small problem that I have on top of that too, which is how very specific the text can be about, there'll be no punishment if your slave doesn't die after a beating after a few days, or where you can find slaves from, yet we're supposed to interpret from another story that apparently the slavery has been abolished. So we can be hyper specific on regulating the rules on slavery, but when it comes to abolishing it, it's like we're going to be vague and gray about it, and just kind of do a performative dance on it instead, and hopefully someone will interpret it that way.
See, I think when Jesus says, "I have come not to abolish but to fulfill," and then he literally goes on in the next part to "You've heard it said this, but I say. You've heard it said this, but I say." So I think he's talking about the spirit of the law, and that was something he even says in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, "Love your neighbor as yourself. This is the law and the prophets." That was
Again, you're just making my case for me. The moment you said spirit of the law, that's my point, Alfred.
Right.
Is we got specific language in terms of if they don't die within a few days, you're cool, you're off the hook, or where you can get your slaves from. There's even entire rules on Hebrew slaves with time frames and who can be a slave when and for how long. But now you're trying to get us to believe in the spirit of this other rule, and how come we got different languages here? Why couldn't we just get specific? Why didn't Jesus, while doing the Sermon on the Mount, go, "Yo, all your slaves as of this moment are free, whether you like it or not"? Why were those words ever said?
There is a passage so that's a good point. There is a passage in the Gospel of Luke where Jesus says, "I have come to set liberty to the captives." And I don't think it's referring to slaves in that passage, but it's something approaching what you asked for.
Again,
right.
So we got the spirit of a thing, or here's a crumb of a thing.
Yeah, and when you talk about the spirit of the law, I mean, again, in Matthew 15, verse 18, I don't see how you can get the spirit of the law is okay, but the letter of the law isn't. When he says, "For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished." Word for word, it's the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law that he's talking about here. So when you say all of a sudden it's the spirit of the law, and I'm not disagreeing that you can come to that conclusion, I'm just pointing out that there's a problem between Matthew saying the letter of the law and Luke implying that it's the spirit of the law, that you have a direct contradiction here that you as a Christian need to resolve so that you can figure out what to do about Exodus 21 and Leviticus.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I will
Yeah,
say.
Alfred,
Oh,
I want to give you an opportunity to bookend this and take us home. We've got another caller I'd like to get to. So go
sure.
ahead.
And no, I mean, there is some moral wisdom in the Bible that I think is like even above what secular humanists, tote around. And it's passages like those for some of us Christians that we really kind of bug light around. And so, I mean, yeah, Exodus 21 doesn't even really exist in my mind, but I know it's atheist favorite chapter for reasons that are understandable, but that's all I
Well,
really wanted to say.
it needs
Um,
to be in your mind because you need to resolve this conflict, right? Otherwise, what do you believe and why? I mean, if you're not following the Bible, one way or the other, you're not following the Bible, right? By ignoring
um,
Exodus 21
The
and not
Bible is a
obeying it,
vast
you're
book.
ignoring Matthew 5.
and then I would also just like to, on the other side of that coin, as far as the humanist point of view goes, um, unlike, say, a Christian who believes in the Bible, if something is deemed wrong or immoral or no longer acceptable, uh, a humanist will change their point of view, adapt, and adopt what is currently the right way to do something.
Mhm.
Whereas a Christian will just bend and manipulate their texts and their book to try to fit a new world narrative, um, instead of just give up on it altogether because it's just doesn't make any more sense anymore.
All right. Well, I could say more, but I see you guys want to get going, so I appreciate it.
Mhm.
I mean, Alfred, you've been a pleasure,
Yeah,
and I hope you'll call again. It was really nice talking to you, honestly and truly.
it was. It was a good conversation.
Yeah. So have a great night and keep your stick on the ice. It's a Canadian thing. Don't sweat it.
The hockey thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that was pretty cool. He was a very uh, calm, respectful person. I enjoyed that
Mhm.
call overall. Um, it's not often where um, a slavery discussion can end with
Yeah,
let's just those discussions normally get hot and heavy pretty quick.
right. Well, especially with Christians who highly identify as being Christian, and then you point this out, something that we no longer consider to be moral, and then you hang them up on what the Bible actually says. Um, yeah,
Yeah. All right, everybody. If you haven't hit that like button, well, you're doing it wrong. So try again and just click that like button. If you're watching this at some point in the future, let us know what you think out in the comments down below, and let us know uh, how we're doing up here, because I mean we're human and we need feedback. So Jim, you ready for another call?
yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we got Adrian, him from California. Says the host interpretation of the Bible's teaching on Jesus. He is, or is he God or part of the Trinity? Oh man, Still don't even know if I understand the
Oh
Trinity
man, it
completely, but hey, Adrian, how's it going?
Good evening, gentlemen. This is my first time engaging with y'all, so I want to say thank you for accepting my call, number one, and number two, I do want to say shout out to Theo. He's one of my I say he's a atheist friend of mine that I kind of got close to as I be hitting up these streams and stuff like that. So I just want to say a salute to him real quick he's the one that got me even up in here. So I said, all right, let me go and call in and see what's up. So good evening, gentlemen. How are y'all?
Doing good.
Thanks for calling. I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm on a YouTube show with freaking Jim Barrows. It's fantastic. Crazy.
This is fun.
It's Justin and Jim.
That's correct.
So I can get first names good.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to go. Before I get into the topic and stuff like that, I do want to know, since again this is my first time talking with you guys. I heard the majority of your last call, so I'm thinking y'all. I think Mr. Justin said that he was a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, him and I established
Catholics.
We were both raised Catholic.
Yeah, we're both recovering Catholics.
Okay. Recovering Catholics. Okay. So respectfully, if we were to engage in this conversation like I did with Justin from Deconstruction Zone, like he kind of brought to me like he was an educated apostate. So I feel that you guys know what's up, and just to say, like, my New Year's resolution is to read the Old Testament. So when y'all reference the Old Testament, I'll go referencing with y'all and stuff like that. I'm at Leviticus right now, so it was funny when you was bringing it up. I said, they're gonna get into some Exodus, they're gonna get into some Leviticus and all that. So that's cool. I just wanted to know from each one of y'all, like, what brought y'all to y'all place and made y'all not believe in the word.
I'll go first here real quickly. Yeah. I went to a French Catholic school. So if you want to talk about, hardcore, yeah, that was crazy. And for me, I don't feel like I was ever truly a believer. I had skepticism kind of always in the front of my mind. As I told Jim earlier in the show, for example, I was always suspicious about, we read the book randomly through the pages. We were never instructed to start from the beginning of a story and read through the entirety of the thing. It was always like, well, it's Easter time, so we'll just touch on the resurrection, or it's Christmas time, so we'll just talk about, the birth of Jesus, and we'll read through those chapters. It wasn't until I got much older when I realized the other chapters we were skipping over were absolutely, frankly, insane. Which then made me much more comfortable to just go, no thanks. And even my father, who continued with the church, the Catholic Church, for years and years and years, right up until he passed away, even he used to tell me, he's like, I don't believe any of the stuff that they're saying at all. I just like to go because I get to play guitar. How about you, Jim?
Okay.
Yeah. I read the Bible as a kid, cover to cover. That kind of started the ball rolling. Later, as an adult, I think I was in my 20s, I started to realize I should probably learn my religion a little bit more. Got into Catholic apologetics and realized that the logic was incredibly flawed. The arguments were horrible. And I still think every argument for God is equally horrible. Don't ask me which one's the worst. They're all equally bad for, the same reasons. And so that kind of was my journey out. It was, I'd say I wandered out of Catholicism, just because I read the Bible, like I said, started it out. There's a lot of stuff that I read that is just like, yeah, that's not good. And couldn't really reconcile that with what I was seeing going on. And then, like I said, got into the actual formal arguments and was just like, this is bullshit.
All right. I respect that. I respect that. Let me just give y'all like a little background for myself. Like, of course, like the family would take me on my Sundays to church and stuff like that. Now, into my adult life, even till recently, just, heavily backslide. Not recently, like in recent years, I say like 10, 15 years ago. I'm 42 now, right? So, it's like I did a whole lot of backsliding, right? So it's not until recently where I'm like, I heard a sermon and stuff like that, and I'm like, all right, let me get my mind right and really dig into the word and really see why I believe and stuff like that. So started New Testament, so forth. Even discovered about the Apocrypha books, not I say last year. So freaking Septuagint, all that other good stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's where I'm at right now. I'm kind of discovering, which is why I kind of made sure that I made it this year, being all right, let's get the OT read, highlighted, studied, and all this other good stuff. I got like 30 Bibles up with lexicons and all that other good stuff, right? So that's where I'm kind of at right now. And let me just say, as a believer in Jesus Christ, right, let me just put this on record as the homie Theo just put down, right, that I did get into Genesis. And let me just say, for the record, unfortunately, that a contentious point that can't be denied is the incest problem. You feel me? With Abraham being with his half sister. So
Why
say that
not the incest problem with Cain, Abel, and only one woman on? Yeah, why not the incest problem between Cain, Abel, and only one woman, their mother? I mean, we'd start with that if you want to talk about incest problems in the Bible.
I brought that up in saying that, yeah, there are contentious points that I've been reading in the Old Testament that I'm like, especially with the Nahor and being with the granddaughter, I'm like, yo, like, is this really in here? But I'm
his daughters did Noah drunk and have sex with him.
I was gonna say, did you get to that part?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, like I said, like I read all of Genesis, I read all of the Exodus. I'm in the middle. Where am I at currently? I'm at chapter 23 in Leviticus right now. So I'm really trying to get it in, because like I'm in this Discord, right, engaging with different atheists and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're having discussions, honest discussions, which I'm all about. And, when it comes to these contestants' points, like, I'm going to bring it up. I ain't got to lie to nobody. So
one thing is clear, Adrian.
yeah,
you definitely have a reputation of being an honest and fair person to discuss with, because we've got chats going off all around us, that you're generally a nice guy. Now, when you said you've been through Genesis already, like the second line in Genesis, how did you get past that? Or I don't remember the exact phrasing or exact line, but there's a part in Genesis where God creates light, but then he doesn't create the sun, and so he doesn't create the sun until several days after he creates the light. How did that happen?
I mean, I can't tell you how. I'm not the one that made it, but I hear what you're saying. Like, no, I'm looking at it. Second line. I'm going off the BSB. That's my current go-to translation. But if you're talking about the earth being formless and void,
are you using?
And hovering over in the waters, I hear what you're saying on that. There was no sun and no moon until later on in the days. But I guess, I'm sorry.
Which interpretation of the Bible are you using?
Delay. I'm just letting you all know. Like, y'all are ahead of everything. So I'm just letting you know there is a delay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
So what interpretation of the Bible are you using?
The BSB, the Berean Standard Bible.
Okay, I thought you said KJV, and I was about to go. No, don't read that one.
But Well, that's my current favorite. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. As long as it's not the King James, you're okay. The King James is the worst translation.
Nah. It's like, to be honest with you, again, full integrity intact. The only time I really use the KJV is if I'm going to compare the apocryphal parts with it to like the CEB study Bible that I have, or my Strong's Concordance that I got, so I can get into the Greek and the Hebrew and all that. But outside of that, I don't really. I'm not that KJV only is type. I'm like, nah, I'm good on that. I'll stick with my BSB. But yeah.
Okay. So when you're reading Genesis, how did you reconcile the fact that there are two very distinct Genesis accounts?
Two distinct as in how?
They're two separate stories, one right after the other in the Bible. So Genesis 1 is the first story, and Genesis 2 is the second story, and they do not reconcile.
Yeah, the order of creation is different between them.
Yeah, it's radically different between them.
Genesis
So on
2.
day one, yeah.
It's
So
starting with the seventh day, right?
So Genesis 2 has 9 different events, whereas Genesis 1 has 7 done in 7 days.
Okay, I'm not, and excuse me if I'm not following where you're trying to find the contention between the Genesis first and
Because
second.
they don't do things in the same order, and they don't say, Genesis 1 says 7 days specifically. And then on Genesis 2, starting with verse 4, says, "This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created, and the day the Lord God made heaven and earth." And he goes on, and you have 9 parts to that, and it's only glued together with that first paragraph, 2:1 through 2:3. And then it starts a whole new story. So you have 2 separate, distinct stories in Genesis
I see where you're going.
that don't agree.
There is an interruption of the flow. I hear what you're saying. Okay.
Well, no,
I see where you're
chapter
going
1 is a complete story. Chapter 2 is a complete story. They're 2 different stories, though, even though they're supposed to be about the same event.
Okay.
Put it on a timeline for yourself.
As of this moment, since this was not sprung onto me, but since my eyes kind of not this.
Yeah, we're dragging into some deep water here.
Because I went over this whole book, but I don't have a direct answer why that happens. But,
right. So check it out for yourself. Yeah, build you a timeline of all the events in Genesis 1, and then a timeline of all the events in Genesis 2, and look at, and keep in mind, the second Genesis 2 actually starts on verse 4, because verses 1 through 3 are trying to tie the 2 Genesis chapters together, and it fails. It's 2 separate accounts.
And then when you do that, or you stop and take a closer look at it, keep in mind, this is right at the very beginning, opening chapters of the entire book. And then you'd have to ask yourself the question, how do you reconcile this? And how do you reconcile any other contradictions you might encounter later on in the book? Because as someone in our chat pointed out, Jim and I could fill up the bingo card pretty quickly with contradictions.
Did Theo put that?
We just decided to start at the top of the book. That's all.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. No, there's a couple bingo cards that we're messing with. And yeah, so far that would be one right there. And to put up, and I think I could give y'all this as a quote unquote contradiction real quick. We didn't even get into the Jesus God part, but since we're on the OT, I say Leviticus 18. Okay, when it comes to the unlawful sexual relations part, I'll even give y'all that full integrity intact, because there are some things that says you can't do this and that when Genesis 20:12, especially on Leviticus 18:11, that's, you know what I mean, that there is a contentious problem with that. So I could give y'all that when it comes to quote unquote contradictions, okay? Because I can give y'all that, okay?
Do you want to do one that's kind of fun, that's much funnier and less contentious, that is a contradiction?
You know what? I didn't even. Yeah. First of all, yes. The answer is yes. And number two, let me bust out my quote unquote book that I use when I be talking with y'all, so I could write it down, because my ADHD is kind of bad. So
I've got ADHD too. I agree with you. Notes are the only way to get around it. Okay, so here's the question: if you take the Bible literally, what can you eat?
Mm-hmm.
So,
clean and unclean. Oh, they break that down. A lot of rules.
Restricted diet comes from Leviticus 9-12, where it says you can't eat shellfish or anything else that doesn't have fins and scales, which means lobster, shrimp, oysters, and clams. Deuteronomy 14 gives you another list of things that you can't eat. However, in Genesis 9:3, you can eat anything. Romans 14, you can eat anything. Mark 7, verse 19, you can eat anything. In Colossians chapter 2, verse 16, you can eat anything.
And Jesus produces fish full of scales en masse by snapping his fingers.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, you can eat as long as it was a lobster, you know.
Well,
the cockroach of the sea.
Don't fish have scales too, though?
All fish have scales, yes.
Yeah.
You can't eat shellfish or anything else that doesn't have fins and scales. So fish is fine.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
Yeah. But shellfish, not so much.
Fins and scales do not, or seeds and stems. All creatures that live in the sea. You may eat anything with fins and scales. And all right, now I can give y'all another one. All right, what is
no? Engage this one. We want to know
the rock badger Hyrax contention, right?
Yeah.
Why is it okay to chew the cod, right? Or to chew the cud or something like that, right?
Yep. Yeah, you can only eat things that can chew the cud.
That the rock badger doesn't do that. That's as in they don't chew the cud.
Why would you expect a Bible written in the Iron Age to know anything about biology, or in this case, zoology?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If God is omnibenevolent, God wants the best for us, why create a world in which there are viruses that can kill us? He's omnipotent. He has the power to change it. He's omnibenevolent, so he wants to. And he's omniscient, so he knows about it. Have you ever encountered an argument called the argument from evil, that is an argument against God?
Now, I'm not going to front, gentlemen, when it comes to theology and philosophy, I didn't take the 101 class.
Okay.
So when you're referencing stuff like that, I'm going to just let you know, probably not.
Yeah.
I haven't.
So the problem
I
with
think
evil,
that's fantastic to admit that, because most people would just pretend to engage and get absolutely slaughtered. So bravo for your honesty there. Sorry, Jim, go on.
No. So the problem of evil goes back to a Greek philosopher known as Epicurus, who lived 341 to 270 BCE. So it predates Christianity. And basically that's exactly what the argument says, that if your God is omnipotent, omniscient, and morally perfect, then and evil exists, then God cannot exist. And so, because he's morally perfect, he has the desire. Pardon?
Is it because of the evil element? Is his argument, if God is all powerful, all knowing, and so forth, why is there such and such still going on, and why is there
evil
happening?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Why is evil can't exist if God is morally perfect, because a moral person wants to eliminate immorality or evil as much as they possibly can. And a morally perfect being does have that desire. It's right there in the definition. So one excuse could be that God doesn't know it, doesn't know where the evil is to do anything about it, except God is omniscient. Another excuse for why evil exists could be because while God knows it exists and wants to get rid of it, he just doesn't have the power to do that. Oh, except he's omnipotent.
Do you think it is allowed so there could be more of an element of a free will for us to have?
So the problem with that argument is that God is omnipotent. And so he could make it, and he would be the perfect cop, right? As soon as someone decided to kill somebody else, he would know it. He's morally perfect, so he can't lie, he can't dissemble. So he could be judge, jury, and if he wanted to, executioner, or if he didn't want to, he could put them in jail immediately. He has the power to do either of those things because he is, by definition, omnipotent, and neither of those things would violate free will.
I hear you. Okay.
By the way, this is the 101 class right here.
Yeah.
These are the most basic.
I'm glad I'm here because
these are the easiest ideas.
I'm all about learning.
Yeah.
These are the easiest ideas for you to be able to stop and try to wrap your head around and try to work them out, because they come up with some pretty hard roadblocks.
Yeah. And that is and again, so if you go back to like first century Christians and you go look at what they believed, modern Christianity are heretics.
To the church fathers, right?
Yeah. The early first century 0 through 100 Christians, because they were heavily influenced. The Israelites of the time, the Jews of the time, were heavily influenced by the Greeks. You'll hear them called as a group Hellenistic Jews. Hellenistic referring to Greece.
Right. I've seen that before.
Right.
Is that HELLENIST?
Yes, Helen with 2 L's, istic. Yes. Okay. And it's Helen the name, not hell, and then en after it. Although depending on the woman, I suppose that could be the case.
What are, not to interject or interrupt your flow, but what makes them so different again? I've seen the footnote on it.
Because they were heavily,
right now.
Yeah, they were Jewish, but they were heavily influenced by the Greeks and Greek philosophy. So one of the arguments that an educated Hellenistic Jew would be familiar with is this argument from Epicurus, because it predates Christianity, and he was arguing against an omnipotent, omniscient, and morally perfect gods, which the Greek gods were not any of those things. And so he was making this argument. So they would have been perfectly aware of this and therefore not believed in this God that modern Christians believe in. There are a lot of things like that. When you go back and look at early Christian beliefs, you'll find that what you believe now as a Christian was probably heretical. You called in about the Trinity. That was believing that would have been heresy at the time, because they would have recognized that it's logically impossible. because of the three
Yeah,
laws of
because
thought.
I'm starting to see verses, referring to the New Testament, where Jesus kind of points out, like, you know, where I put it down in my notes, like, hey, this is a verse, like say, case in point, not a get away from what we're talking about, but what is it, Jude 1, I believe it is, Jude 1:5, where he basically talks about I'm the same Lord that brought you out of Egypt, right? But he doesn't say Lord or God, he says Jesus. It's in Jude. I know.
Let's see. I'm looking at Jude now, trying to find the quote.
Gosh, where's it at? Here it is. Yeah, Jude 1. Yeah, Jude 1:5. In the BSB it says it, and the NRSVUE, and I made sure I looked that up.
Well, he says, now I desire to remind you, though you know all things once for all, that the Lord, after saving a people out of the land of Egypt, subsequently destroyed those who did not believe. So this is from Jude.
Yeah.
This is not Jesus speaking. This is Jude speaking. So he's referring to the Lord, and he's probably referring to God, not Jesus there. That would be the most logical use of interpretation of the word Lord there. But you know deconstruction zone, so I'd bring that up with that, Justin.
I don't have to lie to you, Mr. Jim, but it's I see what you're saying, because it says the Lord on the footnotes on 5A, on the NEWH, and the Byzantine and the Texas Receptors. It does say the Lord, but on the BSB it says Jesus. That's why I pointed out that verse, and that was and what's it called? And there are other verses too in the New Testament. And that's why I wanted to come to you gentlemen, since I believe y'all read all of it. The basic summary, does it teaches more so that Jesus is Lord, or does it teaches that Jesus is a part of being one God? Which I think that's more. I mean, there is the Holy Spirit, there is God the Father, and there is Acts 2:38 when we try to figure out in the name. That's where, I don't know. So there's verses that back up one or the other, but I wanted your guys' opinion, which is why I wanted to use that as the topic.
Well, we don't see the Trinity come into existence until the 2nd or 3rd centuries.
Okay.
And it may not have been the Trinity as we know it, 3 persons in one God. It could have just referred to God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit as 3 distinct entities. But in the Council of Nicaea at 325, you get that they are 3 in one. You actually get that 3 in 1 concept at the Council of Nicaea, and the Council of Constantinople in 381 further solidified that. So like I said, early Christians didn't believe it, and we don't really see it. And the reason that they did that is because if you don't do the Trinity, if you don't assume the Trinity, then you have severe theological problems. And so they're trying to resolve that, resolve those problems.
So do you think, so are you essentially saying that believers that stick with the Trinity doctrine, or whatever you want to call it, they're using the Trinity to try to combat theology and whatever else? So it's not
theological problems in the New Testament, New and Old Testament,
for more theology reasons.
Yeah. In fact, if you go and study, and part of the problem is that when you go and study like the actual prophecies that involve a Messiah, they all involve someone from the lineage of David. God promises David or one of his descendants will sit on the throne of Israel forever, which is not true. It wasn't true shortly after he made the promise either, but it's certainly not true now, right? Because Israel's not a kingdom, it's a democracy. Um, and so if we assume, even if we assume that Jesus is of the line of David, he never sat on a throne. And so this is where you start getting, it's a throne in heaven, even though every prophecy that deals with a Messiah sitting on the throne of David, it is a physical earthly kingdom they're talking about.
Earthly tabernacle, right?
Earthly, actual thrones, political kingdom.
Okay. And you feel the same way, Mr. Justin, about it being more of a theological argument for the Trinity,
To me,
and not
it is
that
such a
believers believe it?
to me it is such a hot mess. It's really hard to just even wrap my head around. So I have placed it into a section of like someone made up a thing so convoluted that the greatest code breakers on earth
Mhm.
couldn't decipher it. Because if I try to line it up to make any sense at all, it comes out to God sent himself or impregnated a woman to give birth to himself, to sacrifice himself to himself, and like the whole thing becomes this crazy, weird, circular family tree that
So you don't
I
think
just can't wrap
you
my
don't
head
think
around it.
God would be able to wouldn't think that? So you don't think it's a real quote unquote redemption story to have them not think like, in order for me to save these human beings that continually disobey what I'm trying to tell them, I think the only way that I could try to save them is actually the only perfect gift, since I am the only one that is holy. I need to give up myself for their sins for all eternity. You don't think?
Let me ask you this. Let me pose this question to you. Would it be just if a son gets convicted of murder? Would it be justice for the father to substitute himself for the child's punishment? The child did the crime. The child is sentenced to do the time, and dad says, "No, put me in jail instead." Is that justice?
It is not justice that I would agree with.
Okay. So why do you think it's okay
I
for God to
completely
do
agree
that?
with you. I know I wouldn't.
Yeah. Why is it okay for God to do that, though?
Actually, your analogy, Jim, technically, if we wanted to equate it to God, it's even more ridiculous because it would be more like if someone murdered someone than for a parent to offer their own son up as
Mhm.
the sacrifice for someone else's murder. It's not even in the case of the son murdered someone offering himself up. But I guess then
Do
again, if
you
you throw the
think? Do
Trinity
you
in there,
think?
it can be whatever you want now.
Now, do you think it's because the father just trying to go down the same road here? If
Yeah.
let's say like the father said, you know what, because I love that murderer or I love that person so much that the only way I'm able to even see them, or the only way I'm able to say they could even be in my presence, is to go and sacrifice the only holy gift that is able to go and take all of that away.
The
So
question
hold on.
is the question isn't, is that not an act of love? You're right, it would be. The question is it justice?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right?
remember, Adrian, who's making the
That
rules?
I hear you. And if I may say, just off the cuff, that may not be, again, full integrity intact. I wouldn't choose that way for a justice call. Could we say maybe God decided he has, let's just say, another echelon of justice that we're unaware of, that he thought that would be something that could be justified, a holy sacrifice for that said sinner?
But the holy sacrifice is to himself. So
the rules
even
he
if
created.
we accept, even if we accept everything you're saying, and it's like this is the only way God can figure out how to love, the way he wants to love. These are the rules he also created. He decided someone needed to be sacrificed
Right.
for the sins of these people I created, the sins I knew they were going to do.
Mhm.
So I'm going to send my son for them to sacrifice to me.
The way you said to me kind of tickled a little bit, but no, I hear
mean,
what you're saying.
Yeah. Keep in mind the logical consequence of an omnipotent, omniscient, omnimoral, perfectly moral being is that they created the world knowing full well what us humans would do, knowing full well what rules he was going to implement, which means that he knew before he created the world, because he's omniscient, that he would have to sacrifice his son. So why did he create the world in such a way that he had to sacrifice his son?
Yeah, and I can throw one more monkey wrench into that just to make it even weirder. If his son needed to die in order for all of our sins to be forgiven, would his sacrifice be not null and void when he came back 3 days later?
What do you mean?
Well, he resurrected, didn't he? He died for our sins, but yet resurrected 3 days later. Isn't that like that's like if you took me to court and won and I paid you $1 million, but 3 days later I came back and said, "Okay, your time is up now. The fun is over. Give me my $1 million back."
I hear your analogy, but I think when it comes to, I think it may be, and again, how you guys elaborated, these are rules that God has placed on the earth, right? That if maybe maybe it had to be 3 days, for example, for him to conquer death. Maybe it had to take that long. And not trying to compare to like $1 million to a resurrected Lord, not trying to do that. But I hear what you're saying, that why did it have to take this to equal? Why did it have to be that for?
I'm not sure you are hearing what I'm saying.
The justice
3 days
that he was looking for. I'm guessing.
Yeah, the 3 days is irrelevant in my point, really. My point is someone needed to die for our sins. No, it's okay. No, don't apologize. Maybe I wasn't very clear. My point is someone needed to die for our sins. God decided his son was the perfect mark. He's the target. Go ahead, sacrifice my son. But then he came back to life. He was resurrected. So did he still die for our sins? Was the entire practice pointless?
That is. See, oh gosh.
Right? So my analogy of the $1 million, Adrian, was I was punished having to give you $1 million, but was it still a punishment if I'm going to get it back in a few days? Or a week or a month? The time frame's irrelevant. The point I'm making is if I'm going to get it back, well, anyways.
See, I like that point, Mr. Justin. If there were all of the freaking points for tonight, that one right there.
Look, I learned that point from guys like
I kind of like that one. Actually got my mind chewing a little bit. I appreciate you laying that out. Okay. Full integrity intact. I'm not going to even tackle that right now.
Just write it down, Adrian. Look,
I hear what you're saying.
Just write it down. Keep reading.
That's why I got this notebook. That's why I got this notebook.
You're doing it kind
I
of
like
right.
that,
You're
I
on.
like that, Mr. Justin. That was real good.
Yeah.
And now you can
These are
either
just a few of the things that you start to run into when you start to, read the book from cover to cover, and you're actually taking notes. So you can notice things like, oh, these are two completely different stories of the beginning of the world tied together to make it seem like
Oh yeah,
one,
part two.
right? Go
That
back
was
and
yours
reread
right there.
Noah's.
That was your highlight. That was yours for the night too. That Genesis 1 and 2. Those were some mind chewer ones right there.
Well,
Thank you for pointing
guess
that
what else
out,
is
because
double,
as I'm trying to highlight and try to color code and all that, like
right?
sometimes I can skim over the minute details, and thank you for pointing that out for real.
Yeah. Well, you know what also, this is also blow your mind. If you thought two stories in Genesis will blow your mind, there are two Noah stories, and they're even harder to disentangle because they're interwoven within this. Like the Genesis story, there's 1 and 2, chapters 1 and 2, but in Genesis 6:1 starts off with, now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the land, daughters were born to them. In 6:9, it says, these are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. That's the beginning of the second story. And so you go 6:1 through 8 as all part of the first story, 6:9 through let me go down here, 18, 19, 20,
So
22
the
is
separation. So the separation point, are you saying, is when it starts with "this is the account of
the
Noah"?
whole,
Right.
all this,
That's it.
both stories are interwoven. You can't separate them out without actually looking at and reading it and making the notes of what actually happens and when and how many times the same action happens. God tells Noah to
Now,
enter
is
the
this
ark
the same for
twice.
the Septuagint?
Well, this is,
Before I
Genesis
dig
6
in
and
there.
7. Yeah, this is Genesis 6 and 7.
Okay, Genesis 6 and 7.
Yeah. And you're looking for how many times God tells Noah to do something or something happens, because they often happen twice.
That is true.
And how many days did the rain actually occur?
Well, the same 40 days, 40 nights.
Genesis 7,
Are we talking about?
24, water prevailed
What are
upon
we
the earth
talking about?
150 days. And you're correct.
What chapter
Genesis
verse? I'm
verses
sorry.
40 days.
I'm
Genesis 8,
telling you, this delay is crazy.
yeah. Genesis 8:6 says at the end of 40 days.
After
Genesis,
40 days, yeah.
yeah. And Genesis 7:24 says the water prevailed upon the earth 150 days. Yeah. So
Adrian, you're an incredibly honest, well-spoken, entertaining individual to talk to. And I don't want to pile on too much because I think that you are going to go ahead and honestly explore these topics. And I actually hope you come back to us with strong arguments against those points, is what I would really like to see happen. Um, if I could throw one more little bit of homework on there for you, because if philosophy is a little hard for you to chew on as much as it can be for me sometimes, I would recommend go read The Minority Report or just go watch the movie The Minority Report and compare it to the idea of free will and see if that brings up any of your own ideas and thoughts, because it's very
Are we talking
interesting.
about
If
the
you've
Tom
already
Cruise movie?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a fantastic movie. I already seen it. But
yeah.
so
Right, but
why
what I'm
you
saying now
wanna
is
compare it?
I want you to put a different lens on, and Adrian, and go watch it with the concept of free will in the forefront of your mind. Even from the very opening scenes of that movie, when Tom Cruise busts in to stop a man from pre-murdering his wife. Well, did that man have free will? Could he have not had the free will to change his mind and stop his pre-murder, as they would put it? But check it out again with that in the front of your head, and maybe it'll put some imagery in your head to help you kind of understand the free will point we were trying to make earlier as well.
Gentlemen, this has been a great discussion, and I'm glad my Ninja Theo said, stop your reading on the Leviticus, give these brothers a call real quick so y'all can have a conversation. So thank you, Theo, for bringing me to Skeptic Haven so I could talk to Mr. Justin and Jim, because this was definitely an educational mind bending experience, and absolutely, gentlemen, thank you for making this a non-contentious conversation again, because
as long as you keep those lines of conversation discussion. As long as you keep the lines of conversation open, you're not doing it wrong. Just at the end of the day, no matter what happens, even if you find yourself more in with God and loving your faith even harder, just keep these conversations going. That's all that helps the most.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Oh, man.
I was going to give him some more homework and tell him to go watch the Matrix movies, because they're also reality versus illusion, free will versus fate, existentialism. And they actually had a philosopher as part of the production crew to make sure that they were getting the philosophy correct as well.
I mean, we could send him to go watch Time Cop, and you get the same,
Yeah.
I mean, if we were to put down an entire curriculum of homework, I mean, it would become a 3-year course, frankly.
Well, yeah, it's just a matter. I mean, if you want to get involved in philosophy and kind of have an overview of it, on YouTube, there's the Crash Course in Philosophy, which is excellent. If you kind of want that just as an overview, and then there's some other really great resources on there as well. If you want more of a study in the Old Testament, Josh Bowen, who is an Assyriologist, has written 2 volumes, The Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament, Volume 1 and Volume 2. That both those are absolutely phenomenal, by a guy who is an expert in that area, Assyria in particular. And while as he will tell you, the Old Testament is not his area of study, he's pretty sharp on what was going on around all that time. And that is an excellent resource as well. Especially if you're an atheist, because he does go into more of it. But yeah,
I'm still trying to get through all of my David Fitzgerald's books that I got. Still going down that mythicist route myself a little bit. I just picked up a book by someone named Jason Scott too. I'm trying to recall the name of it. It's completely off topic. It has nothing to do with anything we've discussed tonight, but it's just interesting because he wrote the book on fascism. He literally wrote a book on what it is and how to identify it and all that stuff. Well, the man who wrote the book is an American who moved to Canada the moment he recognized fascism in America. And I find that interesting. So I just picked up this book. Yeah, How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley.
Canada's too cold. I'm seriously considering Italy. Italy's got good wine, and I do enjoy good Italian food. France has really good wine too. So somewhere along the sun.
If I had to escape, I'd probably go Australia or Germany.
Germany's too cold, but they have good beer.
I don't drink beer, but I like the cold.
Yeah, no. I'm not far enough south. I have friends who live near Cozumel. It's 80 down there. Had friggin' snow on the ground today. No.
Well, Jim, are you going to be appearing anywhere else anytime soon?
I think I am doing Skeptic Haven on the 1st of February, so I'll be back here on the 1st. That is all that I have confirmed at the moment. That is next. I am trying to get more regular on, well, more regular. I'm trying to get back to doing TikTok lives and YouTube live, as well as work on my own channel. So.
Oh, sweet. Fantastic. Yeah, I think I might be back here next week. I think I'm next week.
That's what I heard. You and Neil.
Yeah, Team Canada live and in person.
Oh no.
Right
Lots
here.
Dude.
and we're both kind of into the Lego too, which makes it even kind of worse.
Right. Full Canada nerds coming to you guys next week. Stay tuned for that.
I resemble that remark.
I know. I'm looking at what's behind you there. I see some Mario. Is that Batman?
It's a Lego Mario to boot.
Yeah, Lego Mario. Yeah, I see some other Lego stuff up there too. I don't know. One of them looks like
the Turtles.
Yeah, TMNT. See, was that a knight in armor? Looks like armor from here.
Yeah, Joe. That's League of Legends, so video games. I'm a game designer, so I teach a game design course. So I've got video game characters back there as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, everybody, I just did my first show with fucking Jim Barrows. Holy shit.
Sorry if I talk too much, Justin.
No, not at all. Not at all. It was an absolute pleasure. Look, I've been literally watching and listening to you for years. Like, my lawn is manicured because of voices like yours, because you're in my ear talking while I'm outside, like trimming and
fantastic,
taking care of things. So
yeah,
so it was a real treat. It was a real treat. It was something I knew was going to happen sooner than later. And here we go. 2026 starts off with an iconic moment for me.
Fantastic.
Thanks for
I appreciate that.
Thanks for spending the time with me. And you know what? We had 2 really great calls, I got to say.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah. So with that, I'm just going to read off our YouTube members. And of course, I want to thank everybody backstage as well. The people who put the show together. They work really hard at doing this. All Jim and I do is show up and sit in the chair where they tell us to. But we've got our members here: Kelley Laughlin, Logan Fisher. We got Cynthia McDonald, Infidel, Angela, Stop the Stupidity, and Tons of Mice. Those are our YouTube members. And then we've got also our Patreons that we need to thank here. So we got Paul Cammish, Karen Butcher, Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Rion, D. Murphy, love D. Murphy, Dan D, Michael Wiseman. We got Sunny Shell, Bill Calderone, and a period, because I was reading right at the end of the line as it was scrolling by, and didn't know if there was another name or not, so ended on a high. But in any case, I want to thank everybody out there who is watching us tonight. If you haven't hit the like button yet, you still have time. Do it right now. Jim, thank you so much for spending the night with me, and we'll see you guys all again next time, wherever there's phone lines open.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.